A lot of people are asking, what's the end game? What's the strategy once Hamas is eliminated, if it is?
Well, first of all, the only end game there is to destroy Hamas, which, you know, I don't call Hamas anymore. I call Nazi. They are Nazis. That's the end of it. The Nazis of Hamas, that's the most I can say. But the end game is not only to destroy Hamas, it's to destroy all terrorism in Gaza. And when I say all terrorism in Gaza, you have to understand that in the end of the day, the people who came, broke the fence, murdered women and children and burned babies and raped women were the civilians of Gaza. And that, I think, is the most hurtful thing of them all. You know, the Gazans could have enjoyed the neighbor that they had. You know, when we left the Gaza Strip, when we gave up land, we expected Gaza to be the next Singapore of the area. We expected them to build roads, culture, education. Instead, we got missiles and tunnels. So really the end game is Israel no longer can exist next to Nazi threat. And this is what we have today, a Nazi threat right on our border. And we can no longer live not in fear and not under threat of not just, we have kidnapped people, not just the border of Israel, but almost 10 million people that live under daily threat of missiles, daily threat of terror attacks. Just today, we lost a woman cop that was murdered to death by an Arab in Israel, in the territory of Israel. So we know now that it's not just like little terror attacks, and no terror attack is little, but just incidents, few incidents. We know now that those 2 million civilians that can, by the way, get up and resist at any time, do not do it. They believe in what Hamas does. And if they believe in what Hamas does, then we're dealing with 2 million terrorists, and we have to deal with them in order to never have terrorism next to us anymore. And by the way, we keep saying for those who do not believe in Hamas' way to leave Gaza, to move to the other side of Gaza. We don't want to kill innocent people, but people who uses babies and children and women as shields and live under the Shifa hospital and hide terrorism, it's terrorist on its own, and nothing can be said.
Well, what you are saying again is eliminating Hamas, and I totally understand that. But the question is, who will fill that vacuum? It's not going to turn into an anarcho-capitalist utopia, I guess, once Hamas is eliminated. There should be some sort of a government there, right? Is it going to be an Israeli occupation? Is it going to be a coalition of, Arab states? Is it going to be Palestinian authorities? What is your solution?
It's a great question, because we have seen other governments that tried to give the benefit of the doubt for the Palestinian Authority. And we saw the terrorist Yasser Arafat, who brought guns and more weapons. We see Abu Mazen not doing anything right now, not saying anything, not condemning. They have no power. But we need to understand something. The Hamas people were chosen in democratic countries by those 2 million Palestinians in the Gaza Strip. So when people are telling us...
But there was no election since.
Yeah, but they still chose them. So I will treat them like any other dictatorship in the Arab world, like Iran, that, there is a horrible dictatorship in Iran. But people go and choose some of those horrible leaders. They do believe in them. So I have to treat them like any other Arab country in the world that says that she wants this dictatorship. She wants the hatred towards the Jewish people. So until they decide...
But you can't turn Gaza into a failed state, right? They're right next to your border. There should be some sort of a solution, right, once Hamas is eliminated, if it is, right? Who has to govern the territory?
I truly believe, that until we eliminate terror, obviously the Israeli authorities will see what is going on in the Gaza Strip and won't let terrorism rise again. I can tell you what I hope. I hope that the people of Gaza, that those 2 million civilians will finally wake up in saying we don't want the education of Hamas to our children since they are born to be hatred towards Jews, to be killing, murdering Jews, to be raping Jews as, as something that you get 72 virgins and Allah will make you sacred as a shaheed. I really, really hope that they will wake up and choose a different regime that will be democratic, that won't roam around in luxury.
You know better than me that there's no institution there to do that.
But they know now that their leaders are roaming around in luxury hotels, holding billions in their bank accounts, starving them, and they still stand up in front of the camera and say, "Hooray, Hamas." So they are not stupid. They are able to say, okay, let's find someone that is caring enough, that wants a new era for us. Listen, we, the Jews, I have to say that because you reminded me, the Jews have suffered a massacre of 6 million people. We have gone through the Holocaust, and we could have chose hatred towards Germany, towards the countries that didn't come to help us, towards anyone. And we chose life. We chose to build roads and culture and agriculture and education and democracy. What did they choose? They choose terrorism, they choose horrible education, they didn't build one road in Gaza, they do nothing but hatred and terrorism. So in the end of the day, this is the choice of the Gaza Strip, of the Gazans people to choose who will lead them. If they want another leader for terrorism, we will destroy him again. If they want something else, we will help them do that, and they know we will help them do that. All the peace agreements that Israel made with Jordan, with Egypt, everyone, we saw that we uphold them, we respect them. You have so many Israeli tourists go to those places, and people come from them. We are a country that wants peace, but we have no one to make peace with.
You mentioned Iran. A lot of politicians in the past 4 weeks that I talked to in Israel, they blame Iran. They say the head of the snake is in Tehran. Do you think there will be a conflict with Iran at some point, whether Iran wants it or not?
First of all, I have to say on a personal note, when you talk about Iran, as the Minister of Women's Rights in Israel, promoting women's rights in Israel, I once said, and I want to say it again, especially here, because I never interviewed to an Iranian media. I know a lot of women suffer around the world, a lot of women around all over the world. But I once said, and I will say it again, I think the women that suffer the most in the world are in Iran. And it breaks my heart to see what women in Iran go through. I saw so many videos and read so many articles about women that are being burned, that are being beaten, cruelty that is unimaginable, being locked up only for, speaking their minds, or maybe if the hijab has moved a little bit. So I want to take advantage of this place when we're talking about Iran. And if you're watching me right now, I want to say to the Iranian women, stay strong. Your freedom will come one day. And I salute you for your strongness. And I hope that one day we can all meet, the women of the world, and embrace each other with real democracy. Had to say that. Iran, as it is today, is the head of the snake. Iran operates everything that has to do with terrorism in Israel. She operates Hezbollah in the north. She operates Hamas here. She operates the radical jihad around the world. She operates the Houthis in Yemen. She operates everything. And you ask yourself, what does Iran have with Israel? It doesn't have a border with Israel. We don't have an oil for them. We have nothing with them. And this is not about territory. This is about values. Iran's war against Israel is not just Iran's war against Israel. It's Iran's war against the free, democratic, liberal world. And the world has to understand that. It has to change its disc, because it has to understand that once the radical jihad of Iran will start fighting around the world, beheading of heads and raping of women and slaughtering pregnant women and murdering children and putting babies in ovens will be legitimate, because it's legitimate by Iran. And Iran needs to know this. If she will dare to attack or threat Israel, she will be destroyed. And this is not a question, it's not a mathematics
But it doesn't
of something.
seem that they have any appetite for that. They keep saying that our proxies are doing their own job, we're not going to directly engage. But my question is whether you think the state of Israel, because they know Hamas and Hezbollah are funded and supported by Iran, will act unilaterally.
So obviously I can't speak too much about what are the plans of the government of Israel. I will say that Israel knows that Iran is behind it all. I repeat, Israel knows that Iran is behind it all, from the beginning until the end. We will destroy Hamas to the core. There won't be one terrorist left in Gaza. But if Iran will dare to make an act of threat against Israel, she will be destroyed.
Now, you talked about women and women's rights. When you see the pictures of Palestinian women in Gaza, some of whom I'm sure have nothing to do with Hamas, and they have their house burned by bombs or their babies killed, what is your message to them? What do you think they should do? Some of them, they go to the south, but even in the south, they get bombarded.
They don't get bombarded in the south. The problem is that the Hamas terrorists, the Nazi Hamas terrorists, won't let them go to the south. They won't let them pass the border. They won't let them get free of Gaza. They use them,
but
as I said,
they were
as
attacking
shield.
Khan Yunis in the south.
No one cared about the humanitarian state of Israel when they attacked of 7th of October. No one cared when a pregnant woman, while she alive, was slaughtered at her womb, taken out her baby, shooting the baby and the mom while dragging it. No one cared when they chopped off literally legs, heads, hands, organs from their bodies of civilians. No one cared about humanitarian. And I will tell you that there is no army that is more moral than the Israeli army. I repeat, there is no army that is moral like the Israeli army. And I wished I wish that any army of the world was as moral as us. And I keep telling the people from Gaza, I keep telling them, they can stand up. They know where those kidnapped, over 240 kidnapped people in the Gaza Strip. Gaza is the most crowded place in the world. One of those 2 million Palestinian civilians doesn't know where they are. Stand up and tell us this will be stopped. But we are obligated, by the way, not just for Israel. We have abductees from over 35 countries. 35 countries of the world. Where is the UN? You know, as the Minister of Women's Advancement, I turn to every possible women's organization of the world. Everything. But I guess anti-Semitism is stronger than feminism. No one answered back. Not the Human Rights Organization, which I appealed them all. Not the UN. Not the Hague State. No one dared. And they're all signed on the Geneva Convention, on the Rome Convention. Where's human rights? But human rights are secluded only to one side of the world, not to the Israelis. And you know what? I even turned to the head of the Red Cross Committee, Mirjana Spolić-Egger, and I called her, put on a siren, come with your ambulance and visit those wounded people. But they don't care because humanitarian aid is only for one side. And I said, okay, I know about the hypocrisy for Israelis, but what about the rest of the 34 countries? No one cared about them. So when we were talking about humanitarian aid, we should look very well about what they did to us. We didn't start this war. This war was forced upon us.
You're not suggesting that Israel should retaliate the same way that Hamas acted, of
Obviously
course.
not. We're not barbarians. We're not cannibals. We're not Nazis like them. But make no mistake, Israel will no longer live next to terrorism, will no longer live next to Nazi threat. And this is what's happening right now. So again, I call upon the Gazan people, stand up, go against Hamas. You have enough courage. You have enough power. You're enough people. You know how many Hamas people are in Gaza? There are about, I don't know.
60,000, I guess.
6,000, 7,000 people. You are 2 million civilians. Don't you want better education for your children, for your grandchildren, for the rest of your families? You know, I have to tell you something. Listen, I look at UNRWA, for example. This is an organization that promotes refugee fake status for 75 years. That's what they do. Instead of promoting the Gazans for better education, for a better culture, for better life with us, the Jews, to live in good neighborhood, you think we don't want peace? Of course we do. Again, we don't have anyone to do peace with. And when I look on the radical jihad in the world, we have radical jihad by intelligence, not by May Golan. We know now by the best intel of the world that you have between 15 and 25% of radical jihadists in the world. This is about 250, 300 million people, just like the United States of America. And once these people will start deciding that they are ruining the world will start living with unbelievable murder and terrorism that they haven't seen ever. And those protesters that we see around the world, those are not pro-Hamas or pro-Palestinians from the river to the sea. No, they are pro-terror. They are pro the babies that are put down in oven while raping their mothers in front of them. They are pro those men that were slaughtered in front of their children when their children are begging to die. These are pro people that burned naked women after raping them inside of cans. These are not humans. These are bloodthirsty monsters. And the world would be much better without Hamas, just like it will be much better without Hezbollah and Jihad and the Nazis.